In a time before man was born, before the earth was filled with life and laughter, the world belonged only to the gods. The great gods, the Anunnaki, ruled the heavens and the earth. At their head was Anu, the god of the sky, who sat upon his throne above the clouds, his gaze stretching across all creation. Below him was Enlil, the lord of the earth, who governed its mountains, valleys and seas. And deeper still, in the dark waters of the Abzu, lived Enki, the god of wisdom and the subterranean waters. The Anunnaki had shaped the earth from chaos. They carved rivers through barren plains, raised mountains and brought forth light to dispel the shadows. Yet for all their power, the gods themselves did not labor. That burden fell upon the Igigi, the younger gods. They were strong and loyal, but unlike the Anunnaki, they were bound to the earth by their task, to sustain creation through endless toil. At first, the Igigi labored without complaint. The rivers they carved were a marvel, shimmering under the sun, and the lands they tilled grew lush and fertile. Their work gave life to the earth, and their sacrifices brought harmony to the world. But time wore on, and the weight of their burden grew heavy. For centuries, the Igigi dug canals, built temples, and maintained the delicate balance of the land. Their hands grew calloused, their faces lined with exhaustion. Once vibrant and proud, the younger gods began to wither under the endless cycle of labor. Among them was Marduk, a god of strength and fire, whose once mighty arms now ached with fatigue. There was Kaka, the silent one, who worked with tireless hands, but whose heart was hollow with despair. And there was Ninurta, the leader of many of the Igigi, whose voice had grown hoarse from rallying his kin to endure another day, another year, another century of toil. One night, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a deep crimson, the Igigi set aside their tools. They sat in small groups, their conversations hushed but heavy with frustration. Fires crackled in the darkness, their light dancing across faces both weary and defiant. Marduk stared at his hands, still stained with the earth he had worked that day. "How long will this continue?" he said aloud, though his voice was soft, as if speaking the words might make them real. "We are gods, yet we live as slaves." Kaka looked up, his expression unreadable. "There is no end," he replied. "The elder gods will never see us. They sit in their great palaces, untouched by our suffering, blind to the weight they have placed upon us." Nearby, Ninurta stood and turned to face the others, his presence commanding despite his exhaustion. "It cannot go on," he said firmly. "We have built their temples, carved their rivers, and given shape to their earth. Yet they demand more with each passing age. Our backs are breaking, and still they do not listen." The Igigi murmured their agreement, voices rising like a low storm gathering in the distance. "What can we do?" asked one, his voice tinged with both fear and hope. Ninurta's eyes gleamed in the firelight. "We must act," he said. "We will not raise another temple, we will not dig another canal until they hear us. Tomorrow we go to Enlil, the lord of the earth. We will demand justice for our labor." A silence followed his words, broken only by the crackle of flames and the whispering of the night wind. In that moment the Igigi knew that their lives would change. They had borne their burden for too long. At dawn, the Igigi rose as one. Where once there was the sound of tools striking earth, there was now silence. The great rivers, once churned by their hands, lay still, their waters reflecting the sky like glass. The fields grew quiet as no god tilled the soil. Together, the Igigi marched toward the sacred city of Nippur, the seat of Enlil's power. Their steps shook the earth, a thunderous drumbeat of rebellion. The winds carried their cries far and wide, and the heavens themselves seemed to tremble at their anger. From his temple Enlil heard the approaching storm. He rose, his face dark with fury, and summoned his servant Nusku, the god of fire and light. "What is this noise?" Enlil demanded. "Why does the earth tremble, and why do the winds scream with such unrest?" Nusku bowed low. "My lord," he replied, his voice shaking, "the Igigi are at your gates. They refuse to work, they demand to be heard." Enlil's brow furrowed, and his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "The Igigi dare defy me? They have forgotten their place. Summon the assembly of the gods. We shall remind them of their duty. From the heavens Anu descended, his form radiant and terrible, the stars themselves bending to his will. From the Absu came Enki, calm and thoughtful, his face lined with the wisdom of ages. Together with Enlil they gathered in council to hear the grievances of the Igigi. The gates of Nippur opened and the Igigi entered the great hall of Enlil. Though weary, they stood tall, their faces set with resolve. Ninurta stepped forward and bowed, not out of fear, but out of respect. "Lord Enlil," he began, his voice strong and clear, "we come not to rebel, but to plead for justice. For centuries we have laboured to maintain the earth. We have built your temples, dug your canals, and sustained the world you created. Yet we are breaking. Our backs can bear this burden no longer." Enlil's face darkened, his anger rising like a tempest. "You were born to serve," he thundered. "It is your purpose to labour for the gods and maintain the earth's balance. You forget your place, Ninurta." Ninurta did not flinch. "We are gods, my lord," he replied, "but we are not endless. Even we can break." The hall fell silent. Enlil's fury swirled around him, but Anu raised his hand, his calm presence stilling the room. "The Igigi speak the truth," Anu said. "Their burden has grown too great. The balance cannot be maintained if they falter. We must find another way." It was then that Enki, the god of wisdom, stepped forward. "There is a solution," he said. "Let the Igigi be freed from their labour. We will create a new being, one made to toil upon the earth. They will bear the burden that has broken the Igigi." The gods turned to Enki, their faces filled with wonder and uncertainty. "What being do you speak of?" Anu asked. Enki's eyes shone with a quiet resolve. "A being born of the earth and of our essence," he said. "We shall use our blood, our divine spark, to give them life. They will be bound to the earth, yet they will carry our image. This will be the birth of mankind." Anu considered this, and after a long silence he nodded. "Very well, let it be done." The Igigi, hearing Enki's words, looked to one another. Their rebellion had been answered. Their burden would soon be lifted, though at a cost none could yet comprehend. Thus the fate of the earth was sealed, and the stage was set for the creation of a new being, one that would inherit the labour of the gods, and in doing so set into motion a story that would shape the destiny of all creation.